latest top tips, reviews and advice, please subscribe below.
Hello and welcome to Attwoolls Outdoors with me, Mike. Today I'm going to give you a bit of an overview video on what Vango are bringing out for the 22 season. So throughout this video we'll kind of have a little walk around and have a look at the collections, what's new, what's changing, and a few little snippets of things to come and something to get excited about for sure. So what I want to do is almost start at the top end of the range and kind of work our way down all the way to the bottom. So just bear that in mind throughout the video. We'll sort of look at the most expensive stuff first and work our way down to something that's a bit more sort of price orientated, should we say. So first thing we'll talk about is Vango have basically revolutionized the kind of TC collection for the 22 season. So we've still got the kind of key players in the name with the Ventanus and the Anatara. The Ventanus has kind of gone through a bit of a facelift. We've got sort of the multifunctional mesh front doors now we're putting into it, as well as a tinted window. So it sits very key alongside the Anatara model in total. So it was introduced for 21 and we see it being, you know, equally as popular for the 22 season. Without the whole kind of elite kind of style collection, you've got your signature and your normal version, so either polyester and polycotton. And you almost have the same models in polyester and polycotton. So we've got the Ventanus 2 TC, we've then got the Ventanus 2 in polyester, and they are just carbon copies of one another, but you choose your fabric. So again, you can choose that at the end of the day. So things we kind of know to love is obviously lots of mesh, not only in the sort of side doors, but now fully in the front doors, which we've rolled away. So as we kind of go around the actual tent itself, you've still got all the key main features, things like your sort of darker bedrooms and the ability to open it up and have one big wide open space. So that works really quite nicely, and again, entrances in. So there's lots of unique features to this, and throughout this video we've also got kind of independent videos you can have a look at. So if there's anything that you'd like to look at that I mentioned on here, we've done a video review on everything individually from that point as well. So that's always worth having a look at itself. As with all the elite models, you have the ability to add on the front, certainly something on the front of it. It tends to be more on the 650 sides, but you can actually have a range of sort of sun canopies, front awnings like this, or even front enclosures, should we say. This is just the canopy itself, so you can pretty much pick and choose whether you want a roof and sides, or a complete sealed up front awning altogether. And again, it's really nice an idea. So with the Ventanus, you've got the ability of that built-on side pod to it. For 22, what the kind of Anatara has actually kind of had a progression of is the additional extras of kind of studios that go onto the side of it. So depending on whether you wanted something that was more of a sleeping part or more of a storage part, you have that ability. So that's a bit of a difference between the two. A brand new model we've kind of seen brought into the range to a certain extent is the Soniva, which is a name we saw in 21. Difference being for 22, it's again almost gone through a bit of a redevelop, should we say. So we've still got the same concept with that rear storage, a front section, but now you've got a really nice built-on side pod. So for me, it's probably one of the biggest, should we say, smaller tents on the market in that sort of points, because when you go inside of it, you just oozes space, and because you've got that kind of villa construction, which we know we've come to know and love with all kind of the elite style tents, it means it's suddenly very kind of boxy. You've got great internal height, and with the rear sort of storage bedroom at the back, you know, there's tons and tons of bits as we kind of go through there. And arguably, it's probably the biggest storage tent on the market, because you've got a massive rear storage vent plus a sort of side pod as well. So your living area is truly and utterly your living area, and your awning area is purely your awning area as well. So that's a really quite nice difference. And again, it's just in the 150 denier material. So, but with the whole kind of colour lock kind of scheme. So in many ways, what we see is we have, say, Anatara at the top of the range, Ventanus, and then we have sort of Soniva that sort of fits beneath that before another new Anatara size. The Anatara, which we have here, is polyester. Like I said, the only real major change in comparison really comes down to the addition of having extensions on the side. So these are physical zip-on studios, as Vango are calling them, whether it be kind of a large studio, which essentially takes up 2 panels along the side, or just a single studio, or small studio as they're calling it. The small studio we'll come to have a look at in a second is definitely more of just a bedroom compartment directly off, to give you your tent suddenly that Tahiti kind of feel. With the large studio, It can be really sort of orientated to whether it's going to be more for living purposes, or there's an additional bedroom, I believe, you can buy into it to have it as a sleeping pod. So that way, accommodating extra sleeping capacity without taking up your main kind of living area space. And as we see it here, we've kind of brought the door open to bring the outside directly into the studio itself. All of them have aluminium poles, so it again keeps it lightweight in that very premium feel, matching the detail you find on the kind of the alloy poles that you get with the brow canopies. Still, we've got the options of the front awnings as we talked about with the Ventanus, and again when we look at kind of the opening of it, it's really nice, big and open. I've just chucked everything down for the time being, but it creates a whole new dynamic to kind of the Anatara. Because you have to buy them additionally, it doesn't necessarily reflect on the price. And when you consider, certainly like the Ventanus its own with that built-on side bit, it probably makes it a little bit better value, but it depends whether you want the flexibility of something like the Anatara with the extra studios. The new size they've brought into the range in both polyester and polycotton is a 450. Same concept from everything from kind of the Anatara kind of design, but it's a bit more of a smaller scale, perfect for smaller families or even couples. With me here, I've got the polycotton version, just to kind of contrast against the polyester which we saw on the other side. But you can see it's around about a similar sort of length to the normal larger version, just the fact it's more of a 310 width, 320 width, just giving it a little bit more compact. Now we can see we've also got the small studio. The small studio itself is just a single sort of pod, comes complete with inner bedroom to house again extra people inside of here. Because it physically zips onto these panels on the side here, it's a really solid connection, and it actually helps to make it feel part of the tent rather than an addition. Each of them have its own complete ground sheet physically sewn in as well. Again, it makes it feel as a bit addition to it rather than suddenly often we find with sort of extensions, it's always the seal that tends to be the biggest issue. And when we go zips and baffles, you get a lot more solid connection. Again, we've still got the kind of look of the beautiful technical cotton fabric, tinted windows, single point inflation throughout this. So there's lots and lots to talk about there. A new range we see kind of Vango bring out is kind of, they've amalgamated almost two fabrics, should we say. So they've took kind of their earth fabric, which we saw launched in 21, basically single-use plastic, basically then kind of recreated into material. And then we go into kind of the Dura technique that they've kind of done. So we get the consistency of the weave with the Dura fabric, but more in an eco-friendly version. So here we have kind of it's still kind of in the Earth collection, but it's the Eco Dura fabric itself. Now, we're looking around about 70 denier, and it's about a 4,000 mil high threaded head. So they've got some very premium features built into it. So the whole collection have single point inflation, and essentially it's 4 models in the range as total. So we go from having the 450 and 600 XL size in the Joro, in comparison to moving up to the Rome, which again, we have the 550 and 650 XL models, which we've known for a few years now, and it's just kind of stepped up into that range. It's worth noting that there is also sort of key things like high visibility storm straps front and back, darker bedrooms. We've got mesh built into everywhere because it's that kind of earthy kind of feel, and having a maximum amount of airflow is obviously quite crucial. With the single point inflation, that's kind of also a bit of a benefit. For me, I think for sure, if you're going to do that, definitely buy an electric pump, but you can still use it in the way you would normally were in terms of multi-inflation points. Just I think to do it all in one lump, depending on the size of it from a single point, is a bit much. But we've done a pitching video on the Joro Air, for example, in the Eco Dura range, single point inflation, and that wasn't too bad. The bigger and bigger you get, the more kind of you've got to kind of cope with to that extent. But I really like the colour scheme. I think it looks really quite sharp, and then we've got sort of very kind of, I wouldn't say stable designs, but something we've kind of known and loved from Vango in many ways, and it kind of works. Also, the Rome itself is essentially the same part, just the fact the side pod's been moved on to the other side to allow for the single point inflation to run through. So again, I think this is really could be a really nice and stable product. And everything in kind of Vango's range, whether it be kind of their more entry level from the top end, which we started, has its own unique points, and you kind of pick and choose what's important to you and what works for you. But I think from this, I think the colour scheme, the little touches of kind of the guide points in with the trim, I think again it's the small details that do make it look very classy. And again here you've got tinted windows, which you won't see from anything in the range beneath it. So we've got 4 key sizes that works really quite nicely, and one complete new design they've also brought in is a model which is something a little bit different. So it's called the Vesta. The Vesta itself is like a vis-a-vis style tent, but with a slight twist. So what we see here is we've got almost like a widened sort of main living section as well. So it's quite nice to see sort of a vis-a-vis. When I say vis-a-vis, I mean bedrooms at either end and a communal living area in the centre. So it offers something a little bit different in the market that we see. Its main body is only about it's 3 meters where the bedroom section is, but stretches out to 440 when it comes to this point. You've still got all the single point inflations as we talked about, and again we've got our own pitching video, which arguably actually I did from a single inflation point via a pump, and that wasn't too bad thinking about it. But you've still got tinted windows, and you've got this beautiful kind of PVC windows on the roof, so you can get lots of lighting, so you can do some stargazing or just get a bit more lighting during the daytime. Alternatively, there are curtains that you can zip back, so if you wanted to get that complete level of privacy as you go for. But it's a nice little different concept, something a bit different, and something that we've not really seen from maybe any other brands quite like this, certainly with the single point inflation and the features that you do see in kind of the Vesta. One probably tent that I think arguably is going to be probably the tent that everyone, it was one up there with being one of my personal favourites, alongside something like the Ventanus or the Geneva, is a model we've kind of heard about for a while, but we're a twist. So what we've got is the Vango Stargrove TC. We take a really core independent kind of size and shape of it, put it in air as we've kind of known as very reliable, but the TC material. Now, the joys of this, it brings the price point down to a much more affordable level, and I think it's the one for me I wouldn't say I'm most excited about, but it's got an awful lot going for it. You know, it's for the customer who likes air, wants that kind of better premium and breathable kind of polycotton material, but don't want to spend, up in, a high end of 1,000, 2,000. So it's definitely more price orientated, give you all the core essentials you need with, the air system, so it's quick and easy. You've got the really nice handle of the polycotton material. It's a decent sort of size, ability to sleep up to 6, albeit a bit more smaller per person in the bedroom section. But for what it's worth, it works really well. We saw a great kind of flood to the Oakmere, which essentially is a polled version of this. So I think kind of the air version, I think is going to be, again, very popular for the 22 season. In terms of the kind of the experience collection, there's not a huge amount of change, a few models here and there. What we see is a different kind of colour scheme with the normal things like the Stargroves and that sort of stuff. So now we haven't got a two-tone roof material. As you can see, it's all kind of the herbally green all the way through, just to give it more continuity to it. So it gives you a little bit of a different feel. One model they have sort of slipped into the range, though, is a model which is called the Abington Flow. Abington's a name we've seen for many, many years now in kind of Vango's collection. So with this, it's all about having breathability and a bit more airflow throughout the tent itself. So on those hotter days, you can actually quite happily cope with it a little bit easier. And you've got sort of mesh built into not only at the front, on the side, but there's extra mesh panels directly in the back again. So it's very similar to kind of almost like the Alton, just on a slightly different twist. So again, this is available in a polled and an air version, as we've come and know and love with the likes of the Stargroves and so forth as well. So again, herbal material, fiberglass front pole, so it is very kind of Alton-esque in that way. The last kind of main kind of I would say, big change, the brand new gazebo that kind of Vango have introduced. It's something a bit different and something I think for me, I do really quite like. So this is basically the Trigon Hub, or Trigon Hub, depends how you want to pronounce it. But the joys of it, it's quirky, and even look at the size of it, it catches your eye. That's one thing I do like, and having pitched this again myself, it's incredibly quick and easy to pitch, and it's remarkable how simple it really is. It's a bit of a hybrid in where we've got essentially one central air beam and then sort of really nice steel poles to give it a bit more bracing. Believe it or not, it's actually kind of square, but because it's always on a twist in many ways, it doesn't really feel it, and it's quirky. It's made from their kind of earth material, so it sits in their sort of like Joro and ether category with the Osiris. So same kind of premise with that. Ventilation is obviously key, and everywhere we've got really nice big lots of mesh. We've also got privacy curtains when we need to, but for me, it's the boxy kind of style in this makes it feel really quite big and generous. And happening to be able to stand up in the corners, I think works really well. It's one of those things, I think, to be fair, It's very different. I'm not sure. For me, I really quite like it because of creative content. I think the more and more you see it, the kind of more it kind of grows on you. But from a structural point of view, it's pretty rock solid. In terms of space, arguably, I don't think there's anything as boxy in the same kind of floor plan on the market, just because it's very vertical sidewalls. So, and it definitely will be turning heads on the campsite. Still lots of functionality with the fact the doors can come away, but yeah, it's an awful lot going to. That almost sits alongside kind of the Danu Hub, but that kind of gives you really a bit more of a kind of an overview on what's going on for 22 with Vango. There are small snippets certainly in the caravan awning range which you can also have a look at, but lots of exciting new products and hopefully give you a bit more of a steer. For more questions and queries, by all means, like I said, you can check the link below this video to kind of the Vango range of tents we've got listed and individual videos we've done, pretty much everything we've kind of covered. So if you want more nitty-gritty details on that, you can always check that out. But by all means, let us know if there's any queries. Feel free to comment in the box below. We always love to hear from you and what you like to see, what you like to do, and any improvements you always think that's worth a mention. But yeah, that's our little kind of bit more of a range overview from Vango for the 22 season, from the top down to the bottom.